You okay with my son, yeah? Oh.
Yeah, can you get a bit from the back? Yeah.
It's okay.
Go then. You get it?
بسم الله الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه. We're getting into the habit of starting a bit late. I don't know why. I was here well before the class, but the brothers are not coming on time. So let's just start coming on time. 7:30 is our class. Jazakumullah khairan. No excuse for anybody except for myself. Last thing that we talked about is the zakah on the rikaz, the treasures, rikaz. And I have stopped on that, and I said we're going to be doing all of the zakah in 2 classes. It's not ideal, but we have to make sure that we pass on to the zakah in 2 sessions. Al-rikaz means the treasure which is being buried by the people of Jahiliyyah. So it's not the thing that you people, they look for treasures and gold at the moment in the mountains. That's not the one we're talking about. For whatever the people using these instruments to go and search gold into the mountains and the mines, that is not the rikaz. The rikaz is that something being buried by these people who are not Muslims, and there was at the time of the Prophet ﷺ, and they just find it without any effort, without any spending any money or manpower. He finds it, and straight away he pays 1/5 as in zakah, 1/5 of it. And it's not like we said before, it has to reach the nisab, the threshold, or it has to be for 1 year, if you remember those 2 conditions. Now this one, as soon as you find it, 1/5 of it goes into the zakah. Now, Jazakallah khair. Now, as for the where do you spend this, the 1/5 of this rikaz, this 1/5 of the rikaz is being given as in to the leader to decide. So to the leader to decide. And it's not like the zakah that we've been talking about into the agriculture or the kettles or the money, gold and silver. That is going to be now we're going to be talking about them, which is the 8 categories. But this one is to be decided by the leader or the person who is the caliphate or the person who is in charge. He will decide where we're going to put the outcome of that rikaz. As I said, rikaz is not the money that the people search and they find, and there are some people who are actually specified in these areas, and they bring these machines and to find it. I don't know if you've heard about people as well finding jinn, protecting such a treasure, and it's true. That is true as well. And sometimes they seek the help of the sheikh to go and start reciting Quran before they dig the treasure out, otherwise they're going to be possessed. And that is true, by the way. It does happen. And then the sheikh starts having his share. طيب, the zakah, where is we supposed to give the zakah? Where do we suppose? So we said, you remember 2.5% from the gold and silver on the money? And we said as well from the kettles, and we counted from how many sheep and how many goats and how many camels and how many cows. Okay, where do we give the zakah to? The zakah is being documented in the Surah At-Tawbah, verse number 60. إنما الصدقات, verily the sadaqat, إنما أداة حصر, it is like limits the expansion or limit the expenditure of giving the sadaqat for those mentioned in the ayah, nobody else. إنما الصدقات, verily the zakah is to be given to the following categories: للفقراء والمساكين والعاملين عليها والمؤلفة قلوبهم وفي الرقاب والغارمين وفي سبيل الله وابن السبيل. Those are the ones, the 8 categories. I'm going to translate them in a minute, one by one. So those are the 8 categories. And when we mention the 8 categories, it doesn't mean that we have to suffice the 8 categories. So if I got my zakah, I have to give to these 8 categories. No. You could give to one of them. You could give to 2 of them. And it's going to be very hard for the people to find these 8 categories all the time to give their zakat. And I'm saying this because as well as some scholars who said, now you have to accommodate and encompass all these 8 categories, which is not a strong opinion. And I'm saying this because, as I said, it's a controversial. So the title in this book, which is Al-Wajiz, it says, هل يجب استيعاب هذه الأصناف? Is it a must upon us to encompass for all of these categories? The correct opinion, no, we don't. See, as I said, some of them, they said, like Imam Shafi'i said, you have to. Right. Let's talk about the 8 categories. Number 1, al-fuqara. Number 2, al-masakin. We translate them the poor. They translate the indigent. I don't understand in English who's poor, the poor or the indigent, and what is the difference between them. I don't have a conclusion regarding this issue. If anybody wants to help me with this, it's up to him. Poor and indigent. No. But I'll tell you, poor and masakin. The scholars had differed who is poorer than the other. Well, to start with, the verse started with the fuqara. Then the fuqara is poorer than the masakin. That's to start with. But there are some scholars who said the miskin is poorer than the fuqara. And the other distinguishing fact between them, that one of them is he does not ask the people at all. تحسبهم أغنياء من التعفف. You think that they are rich because they don't ask. And the other one, sometimes he does not ask and sometimes he asks. Now, which one is which? Controversial. We believe, Allahu A'lam, that the correct opinion is al-fuqara, because they are the poorer, and those are the ones who normally they don't ask. You have to search for them. He could be sitting next to you and you never thought he is poor. You never thought. It doesn't cross your mind. Because he's dressed up like you, he comes and eats food and all of that, but he never gave you a hint until you dug deeper. Oh, I didn't know that you're in need. He'll be shocked. And you will be you'll be sort of, I would say, pushed from inside to give this person. Because he's not asking you. How, subhanAllah, I've been with you all the time, you don't ask. I don't want to ask. I don't want to ask because he's shy. So the fuqara and the masakin. How much do we give them? We could give them as much as to suffice them for 1 year. To suffice them for 1 year. طيب. Here we have a hadith. Ubaydullah ibn Adi ibn al-Khayyat. He said that the 2 men told him that they came to the Prophet ﷺ asking for sadaqah. So the Prophet of Allah, he started looking at them like this to size them up, looking at them like that, up and down. Then he saw them and you're fit. So he said, well, if you wish, I'll give you. Because you've asked for it, I will give you. But there is no portion in this money for the person who is strong, who can earn, or the person who is rich. So if it's a person who is rich, you're not supposed to take from the zakah. And the person who is fit and he's earning and he can earn, but he doesn't want to earn, he should not be taken from the zakah. I mean, we should not be having people on the dole. Huh? You be on the dole if you are in need, if you can't work. But to work as not working, do you understand me? I'm working, what? On the dole. I just go to the dole, receive the money, come back. And before, a long time ago, when the system was much easier than these days, the person would rather to sit at home and receive benefits rather than to go and work. If he works, it's not going to be as much. Okay? So you'll be surprised. I don't know if you are, but at my time, I remember when I came here to this country in 1982, the system was so easy that the person doesn't have to work. He just sits down and then receives money while he's doing nothing. So the Prophet was telling me there is no portion for you for that, if you are so. طيب. The third one, al-amiluna alayh, the one who distribute the zakah. So those are the one assigned, deputized by the ministry of whatever ministry, zakah, endowments, ministry of religion, to go and collect the sadaqah. It's not the money we said, it's not the property as in gold and silver, it is to do with the cattle, the crops, and which is something which you can see, cattle that would come and count, and also the dates and all of that. The fourth one, al-mu'allafa qulub. Al-mu'allafa qulubuhum is more than one category. one who reconciling his heart, softening his heart. These are the ones who they are Muslims, but their Islam is not strong. And we're giving them to strengthen their Islam because they are very important to the Muslim state, because they are leaders of tribes. If they stay Muslim, then we will guarantee that their power will be with us, not against us. So this is to be given to the ones who are just entered Islam and their Islam is not weak, is not strong enough. So we're trying to strengthen their Islam by giving them the money. It's not a bribe, but basically because, those people who are in charge of money, they don't want to be showing themselves going into work which is low work. They want to show that they are, head of a tribe. They have a prestige, basically. So those are the ones we give them the money. The other category is non-Muslims. Non-Muslims who happens to be as well strong, and if if he enters Islam, it's good for us to become a Muslim. So he's about to enter Islam. This is the only category from the Zakah where we could give to non-Muslims. So one, which is he's entered Islam. And by the way, this can be given to any person who enters Islam because, when the person enters Islam, ya Ikhwani, he's going to boycott himself. He's going to sever his kinship, isn't he? He's going to be disowned by his parents, by family, by society, especially if his sister. Especially if she puts that flag, which is the scarf, straight away. She will be maybe kicked out of the work. She could be vulnerable. So this is a portion from the Zakah to tell these people, don't worry. If you have been hit hard financially, we are there to help you because it's incumbent upon us. This is part of our money, is for you. So we can give it to those people. As I said, those people enter Islam, some of them, they are vulnerable. And if they find themselves in so much need and nobody's helping them, that makes a shaitan, maneuver a lot and might convince them to go back to what they were before Islam. So this is very important portion. And now the scholars have differed. Is there any mu'allafa qulubuhum after the Prophet's death or not? Is this just at the time of the Prophet of Allah? The Prophet of Allah given it to those people? Because we have Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu anhu, at his time, he said, Islam is so powerful now. We don't need those people. If you want to enter Islam, it's up to you. You enter it. We don't need to go and give you money to go and enter Islam. So Ibn Khattab, he had abolished that. And so that's why we say the difference among the scholars. And the correct opinion is actually they still can be given because the Prophet ﷺ had given those people after the conquering of Mecca. So after Mecca was being conquered and regained, repossessed by the Muslims, Islam became strong. And yet the Prophet of Allah gave to Safwan ibn Umayyah. Safwan ibn Umayyah, he was not Muslim. And he used to hate the Prophet ﷺ. The Prophet ﷺ, he gave him so much that he came to the Prophet of Allah and said, Prophet of Allah, your face was the most disliked face for me. Now you became the most loved person to me. Your deen was the most hated deen for me. Now your deen, which is Islam, is the most beloved religion to my heart. Okay, so the Prophet ﷺ became so dear to him because of he had given him so much. When he went, the Prophet of Allah, when he entered Mecca, 1 month later, those people who are in Hawazin and Thaqif, in a place called Hunayn, they have gathered themselves to attack. They are from Al-Ta'if, that area. They wanted to attack the Muslims. So the Prophet ﷺ, he got the same 10,000 who entered Mecca to go and fight this battle. Only 1 month. And also with them, there were 2,000 that just entered Islam recently. These were the ones who came to Islam as soon as the Prophet of Allah had put Mecca under his control. So there were 12,000. Now, 12,000, not all of them are equipped with arms and with the artilleries and all of that. Like, for example, spears and shields and all of this. Safwan ibn Umayyah had. So the Prophet of Allah went to him and said to him, now we want to borrow from you shields and spears and all of this. He said, "A'ariyatun mu'adda." Is it like a borrowal that you're going to give it back? Or that's it, you're going to take it from me and you're not going to give it back? Because he's in control, the Prophet of Allah. So you're going to be, because he's still a kafir, remember. Are you going to be giving it back to me? So the Prophet said, "Ariyatun mu'adda." We will borrow it and give it to you. So he borrowed it, those alms, and he came. Of course, when you borrow something and you use for war, you're not going to give it the same. Give it the same, is it? It's not, for example, he's going to give you a shining spear, and then he's going to come, mashallah, shining. You're going to use it for the war, isn't it? It's going to have scratches and all of that, especially as well the shield and all this. So the Prophet ﷺ had borrowed that, and when he came back from the battle, he gave him this and so much extra as a bonus. And that's why he became sort of, listen, that this person is in charge. He had the option, he had the power to take these things without giving me anything. He gave them back to me and even extra. He gave me extra from the money. So he gave him so much that he came to the Prophet of Allah. He became the most dearest person to me when you were the most hated person to me. So the Prophet ﷺ, he used part of the money of the zakah to reconcile or to soften the hearts of those people. Fifth one, وفي الرقاب. Okay, في الرقاب. Riqab means to free the slaves. The three ways of doing that. Either you have a slave and set him free, and that's called as well from the zakah, or you buy a slave from somebody and then set him free, also zakah, or you help a slave to make mukataba, to make a deal with his owner. So let's say, for example, a slave, he has the right to make mukatab. He says to his master, I want to set myself free. How much do I worth? So he says to him, well, okay, 5,000. Okay, he makes a deal, 5,000. So he has to bring now 5,000 to his master to set him free. So he goes to you and you have portion of zakat. Yeah. Give him zakat from that money in order to help him, either the full money, if your zakah, mashallah, is a lot, or some of it to set him free, and that is part of the zakah. So we've got now 5. Fuqara, masakin, poor, indigent, al-amilina alayha, the one who worked to collect the zakah. And by the way, the ones who work to collect the zakah, the one we designated. Let's say, for example, we are a charity, and we are saying that this person wants to send him to go and give zakah. Would like him to be a volunteer. Very few volunteers would do such a thing because he wants to go. Now, I would say to him, yes, go. And it's like a worker. How much do you work here? How much? We will give him from that zakah, part of it, because he is distributing this money. So if he takes it in a halal way, he wants as well another person to help him. We will pay that person as well. He wants to sit in a hotel, not 5-star hotel, normal hotel. 5-star hotel, you take it with the zakah, remember. In your own pocket, do it. But a normal, decent hotel, even it's 1 star, because you want to minimize the expenses that you're going to have. So you imagine that this person going to give 5,000 to the poor people, and then he gives no penny. He's giving 100. Why? I've used 4,900 for myself. Well, I would say rather sit home, brother. Don't really go and spend, distribute the sadaqah. Fine. 4th one, reconciling the half. 5th one, for freeing the slave. 6th one, the gharimun, the one who are in debt. Now, the one in debt are also of categories. So, hadith of the Prophet ﷺ tells us what are these categories, which is hadith Qabisa ibn Mukhariq al-Hilali. He said, تحملت حمالة. What is تحملت حمالة? Meaning, I have incurred upon myself the debt of somebody else. How? So let's say, for example, a person killed another person. Let's say. And those people, okay, settled for the blood money. The blood money was 100,000 pounds. These people, they can't get the 100,000 pounds. It's too much for them. So this person, in order to stop the shed of blood between them, because there will be some vendetta and revenge and all of this, he would say, okay, the 100,000 pound is on me. So this person would be well known. He could be rich. He could be what? Rich. And even the more richer he is, the better it is, because the people, oh, thank you very much for taking the 100,000 upon me and I will get it. So this is called tahammala hamala. He had taken the burden of the debt of somebody. And this has been encouraged by Islam because it will stop the bloodshed. So this person is entitled to come now to the charities, unto the masjid. Brothers, I want to ask for your zakah. So he's rich. He doesn't have to pay a penny from his own money. But he's collecting your own zakah to settle what? The debt of other people. Do you understand that? So this is one of the 5 people whom the Prophet ﷺ said, لا تحل صدقة لغني إلا لخمسة. That the zakah cannot be given to a rich person except for 5 categories. One of them is what? This person. تحمل حمالة. He's rich. And he has taken on his burden to reconcile between these 2 people. Okay, I will collect the 100,000. So he went to the masjid, brothers, give me. And when the person rich, people will give. Because they feel that he's not going to take it to his pocket. He's got, mashallah, a lot of money, but he is helping to get the 100,000. Okay? So he doesn't have to pay a penny himself. His job, what he's doing is enough. Just to collect the money. So that's called tahammaltu hamal. So, Messenger of Allah, I have taken the burden of debt. So the Prophet ﷺ, he said, okay, sit, pot, and wait until the sadaqah comes, zakah comes from other people, and we will give you some of that. So then he said, O Qabisa, Prophet ﷺ said, O Qabisa, for verily, asking for money, it is not permissible except for 3 categories. One of them is, which is yourself, rajulun tahammala hamala, person taking the burden of debt of other people. So zakah is allowable to be given to collect, and he is allowed to ask the people to give until he had finished collecting the money that he is in need of. Second one, a person or a category of a person whom he had something came to his crops, something came to his cattle that where people can see and there was nothing there. Like for example, wind destroyed all his crops, weather or a flood killed all his cattle. Okay, so we call it ja'iha, a crisis, taking all of his money. So we will give him from the zakah. He's allowed to ask. And the person whom has been having faqa. Faqa, it is again a crisis, but in Arabic the difference between faqa and ja'iha is that the faqa is something which people they don't know about it because it's not to do with cattle, people can see them dead, or with crops where people can see it has been ruined. It is something to do with, financial money, like he's been robbed or some fraud took place on him and he's now bankrupt. Okay, so the Prophet ﷺ, he said, them 3 people from his own tribe, from his own clan, from his own family, 3 people who are قال من ذوي الحجة, got common sense. Those people are known to be prudent. Those people known to be sedate. Those people known are to be sensible. These noble people are senior. So 3 senior people. Then they will testify that this person had correctly and truly been struck with such a calamity, meaning that he had his money been robbed or he had fraud, something happened to him, something which people cannot know except these 3 people stood and make an oath that he had, or they have testified that this person truly is in need. Then Prophet ﷺ said, other than those 3 people, whoever takes it, then he takes suht. Suht, which is haram money. Taking haram money. That's the 6th category. Now the 7th category is fi sabilillah. Fi sabilillah. Fi sabilillah, ikhwani, is not an open check for everybody to say, oh, I'm building a school. Can I give me zakah fi sabilillah? No, it's not. I'm not allowed to give you to build a school from the zakah. You understand that? There's no money to be paid to build the zakah. I've got an orphanage. I want to build an orphanage. I want to buy books for the orphans. Can I pay from the zakat? No. Pay from the sadaqah, but not from the zakat. The zakat is got these categories only. What about, he's poor, he's, orphan is poor. Well, then if he's poor, you give him the money and he decides whether he wants to buy books or build his own school. It's up to him. You give him that person because that money belongs to him. It's not for you to decide whether you're going to build him a house or you're going to build him a school or you're going to give him a rubber and a pencil and a book. No, it's for him. It's his money. So no zakat to be given. So somebody goes, more orphans and orphanage. We don't give zakat. Give sadaqah. Oh, we give us because of people wants to get married. Oh, get married, jazakallahu khairan. We'll give you sadaqah, but we'll give you zakat. Can't give zakat unless he is from the 8 categories. So fi sabilillah, it is not a stretched term that accommodates. Then what's the point of mentioning the first categories? If fi sabilillah, everything, building a school, building a university, building a masjid, you can't build a masjid from the zakat. So fi sabilillah is jihad. Whether it is money you give, or you designate a camel, or you designate a car, or you designate a gun, designate whatever it is. Fi sabilillah. So you give it from the zakah, money, and this money you purchasing things that the mujahideen they need, or they're giving it to those people, to the people who are in charge of this army to look after that. This is the zakah. So the army will be equipped also from the people who are helping, because there's a portion in the money of the people to be given to those soldiers. So you could give the mount, or you could give the clothes of that person, get him ready by paying the zakah. Fi sabilillah, also another dimension for it is al-hajj. Why? Because of the following hadith. The Prophet ﷺ, he wanted to make the hajj, and this is the only hajj. A woman, she came to her husband. She said, dear husband, I want to make hajj with the Prophet of Allah, along with you, because he's making the hajj. So he said, I don't have anything to make you hajj with me. I don't have your amount to make hajj. So he came to the Prophet. He said, Messenger of Allah, oh verily, my wife, she's saying salam to you. Inna imra'ati taqra'u alayka salam. Say salamu alaykum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. And she had asked me that she wants to make hajj with you. So she said to me, make me to make hajj with the Prophet of Allah. So I said to her, I don't have a mount to provide you in order to do so. So she said, okay, well, make me to have hajj on your such and such camel. She gave the name of the camel. So she knows that he's got a camel, spare camel. So he said to her, so I said to her, Messenger of Allah, this has been locked for jihad. This has been what? Designated for the jihad. So the Prophet ﷺ, he said to him, verily, if you had accepted to make her to do hajj on that camel, then it will be considered in sabilillah. So if you have given her that camel, which you have given to the jihad, you gave it to her to ride the camel to make hajj, then it's going to be considered fi sabilillah. So we got to widen the dimension of the fi sabilillah. So jihad and also hajj. Last one is Ibn Sabil. What is Ibn Sabil? The wayfarer, they call it. Traveler. Now the scholars had no problem to say, and consensus as well, that he is the person who traveled already and he is in a land which is stranded. He can't go back because he hasn't got the money. Or maybe he's got money at home, but he hasn't got access to take that money. Do you understand that? I mean, in these days, it's very, very hard to imagine it, because everything can be accessed with mobiles and all of that. But let's say this person is being robbed from all of it. He hasn't got any access to it. He's got rich. He's a rich person, okay, at home. He's a rich person at home. He's allowed to take zakah in order to go. Now, scholars had said, okay, he's got 2 options. He could borrow the money and say to the person, I'm going to give you the money once I reach home, or to take the zakah. Which one is better, Ikhwani? Is it to borrow the money or to take the zakah to take the money? He's entitled for the zakah. Huh? Take the zakah. So you think like Bill Gates will take a zakat? Borrow, of course. Of course, it's borrow. Because the upper hand is better than the what? The lower hand. He will borrow. When he borrows, he will find himself, he's on top of himself. He's not putting himself into like, give me, give me. So he will borrow the money, I'll give it back. Now, also the scholars had differed. Is he allowed to have the zakah even if he's rich? And that's as I said, because he's not mentioned in the five. Rich people are entitled for the zakah. He's not mentioned there. He's one of the five. He's not one of the five. The other difference among the scholars, he wants to initiate a journey. He's in homeland, but he wants to go for necessity. Do I give him or not? That's zakah or not. So he's initiating a journey, a traveling. We say, well, let's say that this person, his mother died, his father died. He's not poor, but to buy the ticket, he hasn't got the money. He is poor. Do you understand me? The ticket costs him £1,000 return. Can I give him the zakah? Correct opinion, yes. So the wayfarer, there's no definition from the Prophet ﷺ. We cannot just limit it to the person who's been cut from homeland, even if he's in home, but he hasn't got the money to initiate a very important journey. He needs to do this journey. Wallahu ta'ala a'lam. Prophet ﷺ, he said, as-sadaqah is not to be given, or is not fit to be given to rich people except for five. The one who is working on distributing the zakah. He could be rich, but he's entitled because he's working. He could be rich, but I'm going to designate myself for you because you are designating me. You are employing me to go and give what? This zakah distributed. So from the zakah, we could give him as well. From the zakah, we could give him what? That money. So this is a person who's rich, is entitled for the zakah. Second one is the person who is, you remember, the one who had taken the burden of what? Of a debt. He's rich, but he wants to take the burden of debt, especially the big debts, in order to reconcile. As well, he's allowed. Thirdly, that the person who is making jihad fi sabilillah. So he is rich, but he's entitled to have zakah from other people to be in the jihad. Fourthly, a person who is a poor person and he's been given zakah. Okay? And this, from that, he gave hadiyah to a rich person. So it is money, which is zakah, is being given to a poor person. And this person took part of it and gave you as a hadiyah, and you are a rich person. You're allowed to take it. Do you understand me? Person who's poor received zakah. From that zakah, he gave portion of that to a rich man as a hadiyah. It is zakah, and it's given to the rich person, but not directly from the person who's giving the zakah, indirectly. Comes to my mind one of the as an example of this, Burra, yes. Burra is a slave woman whom she's to be slave for Aisha radiallahu anha. You know that the Prophet ﷺ, on all the Sayyid family, the ones who are from the Bani Hashim, okay, from the Prophet of Allah, they're not allowed to take zakah or sadaqah. Because these are the dirty money of the people. They're not allowed to take sadaqah and zakah. If they are poor, they have to be given a specific, like, designated salary for them. So that's why the Prophet of Allah, one day he saw, saying he's trying to take a date from the floor. He said, "You're a kid." That means what? Don't take it. Why? Because it could be sadaqah. That date could be sadaqah. So he did not allow even little kid to take that date. Sadaqah. So it's not allowed. So the Prophet ﷺ is not allowed to have any sadaqah or zakah. One day, Aisha radiallahu anha, she had some meat. So the Prophet ﷺ الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه. أما بعد. Just we're going to start, inshallah, to finish before the Maghrib prayer, and then we'll have the questions after the Maghrib prayer. What's left now is only one chapter in the Zakah, and that is the Zakatul Fitr. To document this class, by the way, this is the 11th gathering, and this is the second part of the Zakah. طيب, Zakatul Fitr. What is Zakatul Fitr? Zakatul Fitr is the Zakah that the person pays it at the end of Ramadan. And the hikmah, the wisdom behind it, is that the Prophet ﷺ, he said it is to be a tu'mah, feeding for the poor people, and also expiation for the things that you've been doing in Ramadan, whatever it is. So that will be an expiation for all of that. So al-lagw, so it is tuhratul lis-sa'imi min al-lagwi wal-rafath. So it will be expiation and purification for the fasting person from anything that he had scratched his fast with. As I said, for the poor people, when they come to the Eid, they will come and they will rejoice, and they will come and participate and share the gatherings and the joy as well, because they know for a fact that, alhamdulillah, their houses are filled with all these things which are necessity, like the food, the rice, and all of this. So when they come to join the participation of that festival of the Eid, they will be happy. They know that when they go home, they're being secured. And the most security that you need is the food. So they can have food. So that's why the Prophet of Allah, he said, tu'mah, it's a food. Prophet of Allah had camels, he had sheep, he had cows, he had money, he had gold, and he had silver. Yet the Prophet of Allah, he asked to be given as food. It's not being given as slaughtering a sheep. It's not to be given as money. And the scholars, Al-Imam Malik and Al-Shafi'i and Ahmad ibn Hanbal, those three, they said that if you've given it other than the food, it will not be sufficient. It will not be accepted. Except for Imam Abu Hanifa. Now, Imam Abu Hanifa, he did not have the same ahadith that the other scholars who came after him had. Meaning, don't judge the matter with Abu Hanifa said, because Abu Hanifa, he was not informed of the same information that the scholars after him, they were fed with, or they're informed with. So Imam Abu Hanifa, he said, maslahatul faqir. Faqir is the poor person according to what is good for him, to give him it is money, to give him the money. I would say, how much is sadaqatul fitr that you give him? It's only £4. You think that £4 is good enough for the poor person? What is that poor? £4 is doing nothing. But the £4 when he's buying for him, for you, that is the 2.5 kilos of rice that he needs, much better. You could give him sadaqah as money, but sadaqatul fitr has to be food. So the category of sadaqatul fitr is food, just like we have Eid al-Adha is slaughtering. So no one would say to you, brother, instead of slaughtering a sheep which costs you £150, let's have the £150 and give it to the poor people. No, that's called sha'ira min sha'air al-Islam, symbol from the symbols of Islam. Exactly the same, giving the poor people in Ramadan, at the end of the Ramadan, is to give them food that is a symbol. Now, what type of food? It has to be the food, as the Prophet Allah mentioned in the ahadith, which is, or the likes, meaning the one we call it dry food and can be stored. Remember, the poor people, they don't have fridges. So you can't give them meat. Straight away, they sell it. Or they just give it like this because they can't store the meat. They don't have fridges and freezers. And they have one small fridge, but they're not going to have huge ones to store all these meat that are being given to them. But they could store things that can be stored for 1 year. They could have sacks of rice, no problem. They could have sacks of lentil. They could have sacks of, for example, raisins. They could sacks of dates. Could sacks of as well flour. You know the flour. It's all from the sadaqah. Flour, barley. Some of the people like the barley to make bread out of it. So all of it to make chapati out of it as well. So all of those are dry food, can be given, And this is the thing that you should be given in Sadaqat al-Fitr. So the rule of it, it's compulsory on the person who is the household, the man of the house. She could be the woman of the house. So the person who is in charge, all his dependents, he has to pay Sadaqat al-Fitr on their behalf. Now, as we said, it has to be food, but you could give it to the third party, as in money. And this third party, you have to make sure that these people are trustworthy. They're going to change that into what? Food. Into stored food. They can't give it money to the poor person and you say to him, go and buy food. No. He might use it for something else. So it has to be given food. Now, it to be all your dependents, whether he is male or female, old or young, not on the dead people, not on the womb. Whatever is in the womb, there is no Sadaqat al-Fitr. Unless he's born just before the night of the Eid. If he's born after the night of the Eid, after the Maghrib, the sunset of the last day of Ramadan, no Sadaqat al-Fitr. Do you understand that? I'm not talking about a lot of money. I'm not going to say to you, make sure that your wife delivers the baby after sunset. Otherwise, you're going to pay Sadaqat al-Fitr for him. It's only £4 anyway. So, but I'm just saying, that's deen we have to understand. If he was born before Maghrib, the last day of Ramadan, Sadaqat al-Fitr incumbent. If he's born after, there's no Sadaqat al-Fitr on him. Sadaqat al-Fitr, sa'. So if you have 10 family, your family is 10 people, that's 10 multiplied by sa', 10 sa'. Each sa' is a volume, by the way. It's a volume. Sa' is a 4 handful. Look at my hand like that. So it's not quite open. It's not quite closed like that. 4 of that. And this is the hands of somebody who is like average. It's not a small kid, nor he's a mashallah massive hands. Okay? Right? So there's 4 handful. So it is a volume. So the 4 handfuls of dry food, it depends on the food itself, how much weight. So roughly, it will not exceed 3 kilograms. Between 2.5, 2.2, so between 2.2 and 3 kilograms. So you get the maximum, 3 kilograms. So 3 kilograms, so if I'm 10 people, how many kilograms I'm going to need? 30 kilos. Do you understand that? 30 kilos. That's the sa'. Sa' is what? 4 handful, which is 3 kilograms of dry food. Now, you say to me, but why is it the masajid and taking a lot of money? I mean, 3 kilograms, 4 pounds, it doesn't bring a lot more than that, 3 kilograms in some of the, some of the countries. I mean, 4 pounds, some of them can take 5 pounds now these days. 4 pounds is maybe a long time ago, 5 pounds. Okay? Don't worry about that, because maybe they have another ideas. Because first of all, this 4 or 5 pounds is not based upon the power of your pound here. And I think with 4 pounds, you can't buy 3 kilos of rice. I don't think so. Do you understand that? It's actually in the area they're going to send it. But in Pakistan, it'll buy you 5 kilos of rice, 6 kilos of rice, double. So those people who will receive the money there, in the whatever country it is, they will change that money into rice in kilograms. So let's say that the masjid here, let's say, they've gathered 5 pounds per head. 5 pounds per head. Let's say. So they've gathered now 10,000. So this 10,000, they're going to send it to this person who's going to, in another country, who's going to change it into food. How many kilos he should produce? I've given you now 5 pounds per person. And I'm giving you now, it's 10,000 that he collected. How many kilograms? Think before you do anything. Think, please. Think. Okay, I'll repeat the question. The masjid is saying we're setting 5 pounds for each person for Zakat al-Fitr. The masjid gathered 10,000 pounds. I'll tell you, I'll make it easy for you because your maths are really... They've gathered 1,000 pounds. How about that? Forget about 10,000. They've gathered, you can't do it. My God. They've gathered 1,000 pounds. They set this 1,000 pounds to those people who are going to turn it into food. How many kilograms they need to produce in order to cover for that Yalla. If you don't do it, that means you're not supposed to work for this. 600 kilos, he says. Do you know how did he do that? Right. The 1,000 divided by 5, we get the amount of people. How many people? That's 200 people. And we shed each person 3 kilograms. 200 multiplied by 3 kilograms makes it 600 kilograms. So in that country, they produced 600 kilograms, but it costed him 600 pounds. So how much they got surplus? 400, for example. That 400, they could give it sadaqah, they could give it oil, they could give it money, they could, as long as they got the 600 kilograms out, they covered the people who paid. So the rest, if they are clever, they could give it money, could give it, some people, they want some oil to cook the rice with it. So they got surplus of 400 or whatever, 300 and 200. You understand that now? But not 400 in their pocket. No. It's to be given to the people, but you don't have to give it as a rice. You could give it something else. You give them chicken. No problem. You could give them meat. No problem. You could give them money. No problem. Fine. Zakatul Fitr is to be given at the last 2 days. But if you need more, no problem. Because some of the Zakatul Fitr is too much. 10,000 pounds. Last 2 days. At the time of the Prophet, even between Fajr of the Eid until Salat al-Eid. But the Muslims were few. And people can't really receive between Fajr. That's a limited time. Now, at the time of Umar al-Khattab, later on, there used to be 2 days before the end of Ramadan. Because it expanded. Now we can give it 3-4 days, no problem. But I can't give it to the poor person at the beginning of Ramadan. He's already had cooked the rice and he got nothing now. When he goes to the Eid, he will be upset. He needs something which is close to the Eid. He's happy and all of that, sharing with you. So to be close to the Eid. So maybe the last 3 days, no problem. We start from the 26th night. 26th and 27th, 28th, 29th. At least you have that. No problem if you need to do so. So 3 days or 27th night. I would say from the 27th night will be enough, inshallah. Right. So this Zakatul Fitr is to be given only to one category. What are they? Poor people. Not to be given to the ones who are in debt or the ones, it has to be poor people. To be given to only to the poor people. So it's not to be spent to go and set free, slave free. No. It's not for the wayfarer. No. It's not to be given to the jihad. No. Only to the poor people. Wallahu ta'ala a'lam. By this, alhamdulillah, we finished the zakah and chapter. Of course, general sadaqah. You have general sadaqah the way that you wish. And inshallah, we will have questions after the prayer. Let's just do the Maghrib prayer, inshallah. And we'll have questions. let's fire up with the questions. Questions which has to do with zakah will be more priority than the other one. So if you have zakah as a question, you want to give them a microphone? Okay. Is that for the recording or for the sisters? Fadl. I think you could hear you, sisters. They could hear him because he's at the back. Speak. It's not charged. We're not ready. It's not charged. Yalla, loud.
Sometimes what people usually do is that they give the cat to a charity online a day before the Eid. But then I was wondering, will the poor people will they reach it on time if they are abroad? If there's a cat is given online for a charity the day before, for example, would it need to be given like early in Ramadan so to reach them on time?
So the question regarding the zakat al-fitr to be given to a charity whom they are collecting zakat al-fitr even the last day before the end of Ramadan, the 29th day. So these people, for example, when they give it to them, is it better for them to give it to this charity before that day? I would say it's better for them not to give it to this charity at all. Because this charity, it looks like they don't really bother about sending the money to the right people in the right time. Because they still collecting money to the last sunset of that, I don't think they're able to link the money quickly to those people to go and buy and purchase food and to give it to those poor people. I'm not saying that all of them, they're not really correct, but I'm just saying I wouldn't really go to this. I would go to the charity, would say, for example, 2 days before they stop, or 3 days before they stop collecting. Our masjid stopped how long ago? How long before? 2 days or 3 days, we stopped. So the 27th night, I think, 27th, we've collected the last thing. We don't want to have more because, and especially if it's a big charity or they receive thousands of pounds. Okay, not hundreds, thousands of pounds. Where are they going to link this money? How are they going to get the poor people? I would say this charity, they need to make sure that they have links properly so they give it to the poor people. But I would give it to the person who is, or a charity whom you are more reliable. And I would give it to them early. Yes. You could give it to them. No problem to give to the charities, zakat al-fitr, even at the middle of Ramadan. Because you know for a fact that they will give it at the end of Ramadan. But if they say that we will give it to the sadaqat al-fitr, to the people before the end of Ramadan by 10 days or something, don't give it to them as well. Again. And if these people as well do not bother whether you give £3 or £5, do not give them as well. Because they have to set the target. Why? To calculate how many people pay. So any person, doesn't matter if you pay me £2, if you pay me £5. No. Zakat al-fitr is to be, for example, £4 or £5. So they will know how many people had paid, and they will figure out how many kilos they're going to be spreading or giving to the poor people. So trustworthiness and knowledge has to be coupled together. Naam. So a person who is borrowed money to buy a necessity. A necessity here, and its necessity, it is like, for example, a fridge, like, for example, an oven, for example. Those things are very necessity. He borrowed the money and he's in debt. Am I allowed to pay him the zakah? Yes, you're allowed to pay him the zakah because he borrowed money for a necessity. But if he had borrowed money for building a house, no. Why do you need to build a house? You just rent until you are good enough to pay this. Also, he borrowed money to buy a car. Okay, which car? Is it the one which is 500, 1,000? Or he bought a Lamborghini and he says, I'm in debt, brother. Give me zakah. We don't give him zakah. Sell your Lamborghini and give yourself money. Okay? So if it's necessity and he needs that, then we will categorize them into the people who are in debt. Basically, it's poor. Now,
You said that the five types of people who are rich who can be given zakat, right? I got three of them, but I missed two. Could you please repeat the two that I missed? I missed
Good.
the first and the last one.
the ones who can buy, sorry, the ones who are rich, that they are allowed to receive the zakah. Not to receive, that the zakah will end up with them. We said the person who is working to collect the zakah. So the person who's working to collect the zakah, even if he's rich, is entitled because Allah says, وَالْعَامِلِينَ عَلَيْهَا. The person who is doing jihad, even if he's rich, they're allowed to give him zakah. The person who had taken the burden of the debt, even if he's rich, he took the burden of other people's debt, he's entitled to be receiving the zakah in order to settle the debt for these people. And the person whom the zakah is being given to a person who is poor, and then that person giving a gift to that person who is rich. So that is the zakah. The fifth one was a person who had purchased his own zakah, meaning he gave zakah of a camel, and later on he found the camel in the market and he took it back. So those are the five people who can receive the zakah and they are rich. Now, تفضل. Somebody gets what? No problem to receive zakah from more than one person, as long as you are not rich. So if somebody gave you a zakah, let's say 50,000 pounds, mashallah, mashallah. So you became rich now. You're going to give what zakah to other people. So you don't take zakah from other people. And unfortunately, when you brought this question, it came to my mind, that some people, they make this zakah is like a suckling source for them. This person, Allah exposed him. And when the brothers calculated, because the rich people, and when he is done, those people give him zakah. They got together, they don't know each other. They worked out how much does he get every month. Because each rich does not know about the other rich that he's giving him when he's being exposed. They were calculating 5,500 dinars, which is about 7,000 pounds. MashaAllah, a month. 7,000 pounds a month. MashaAllah, tabarakallah. A poor person. And this is how, a'udhu billah, these people take advantage. Okay? Okay. You remember, the one who is giving is better than the one who's taking. Al-yadul ulya khayr min al-yadul sufla. Don't be the one who's just receiving. Further. Yes.
Some of the charities in the UK that collect zakat, sometimes they give the zakat in other things than money. So you give them money to give it, and then if in a certain area of the world something else is better than money, for example, if there is a flooding or an earthquake, they buy with this money for them, give it to the people instead of just giving them money because they say they need it more than money. Is this?
No, not allowed to use the zakah money except by the consent of the person who's the poor who's receiving it. So if he's a flood or whatever he is, and these people said, buy me rice, okay, yes, no problem. Build me a house, it's no problem. But just to build him a house and say this is from the zakah, you can't. They have to be with their consent. Okay, so give me house or buy me food, it has to be with their consent. As I said, it's exactly the orphanage. The orphanage as well. You have to be given to the poor orphans to themselves, not from the zakah. For the sadaqat, no problem. Unfortunately, we do find people, they actually give themselves the authority to go and use the zakah the way they like and give it to these people the way that they think it is good for them. It's not correct. Now, in one category or in one circumstances where you could buy something to the people, if, for example, you think that this person, he can use it for haram, he drinks, or he smokes, okay? He's going to use that money for smoking. So no problem in this way is to tell him, brother, you've got a habit of drinking, I know you. You've got a habit of smoking, and I know you. So this money is with me. You want me to pay your bill? I'll pay it. You want me to buy you washing up liquid? I'll pay you. You want me to go and I'll get it for you. I want me to. So ask him what he wants. But if he had given you the, sort of the oath, and he said, by Allah, I'm not going to buy any cigarettes from it or anything like this, haram, then give it to him, inshallah. طيب. The poor person, we said we give him zakah. طيب. We said also the one who's in debt. طيب. Somebody who's in debt. Is it better to give to the person to give to the creditor, to give the creditor, or to go ourselves to the creditor and give him the money? Do you understand what I'm saying? So this person is in debt, question of farasa. He's in debt to farasa, to buy a car. So we're going to settle his debt by paying zakah. Should we go to farasa to give him? This is the money that you have given to that brother. Should we give it to the person who is in debt and he will give it to farasa? Which one? Yeah. Question. You know the ayah, subhanallah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, إِنَّمَا الصَّدَقَاتُ لِلْفُقَرَاءِ وَالْمَسَاكِينِ وَالْعَامِلِينَ عَلَيْهَا وَالْمُؤَلَّفَةِ قُلُوبُهُمْ وَفِي الرِّقَابِ وَالْغَارِمِينَ. طيب. Here the word from wa against wafi. Subhanallah, this change built upon it was fiqh. Okay? So when I said sadaqat al-fuqara, you could give it to the poor person, to the indigent, to the one who's working for the sadaqah, to the one who's to reconcile his heart. When it came to the setting up the free, he said, wafir riqab, not wal riqab. Why? Because you don't have to give it to the person himself. You could set a free slave, you could buy a slave and set him free, and you could give it to the person who's a slave to set himself free. So that's why the preposition changed. وَفِي الرِّقَابِ. And after that, وَالْغَارِمِينَ. وَالْغَارِمِينَ, the one who's in debt. So now the debt, is it to give it in his hand or to give it to the creditor? Which one? Scholars, they said, it depends. If this person is going to take that money from you, the sadaqah, to settle his debt, it's better to give it to that poor person who had been in debt. Because he will take the money, and then he will go to the person who's a creditor, Akhi, take your money back. And he will feel with the strength, the upper hand, I'm giving you your loan back. So that's better. But if you think this guy is going to take the money and he's going to do something else, even it's halal, but not to settle the debt, then go to the creditor and give him the money. Do you understand that now? So if he is willing to give the money, then he will give him, mashallah, triumph to go and give it to the creditor. Otherwise, you give it to the creditor because we have seen some people give them the money to go and settle the debt. They don't. The debt still is the same. See, they will be in debt all the time. So settle the debt by paying the other person. Now, further.
You said the number 6, the people who are in debt, are one of the there's categories amongst them. What were the categories that you said? So you said there's a few categories. You mentioned it as well.
You're asking me something to repeat my class. It's always asking me, what did you say about the 3? What did this? You have to pay attention to the class. Yeah. We said that in the hadith Qabisa ibn Mukhariq al-Hilali. The hadith says, I'll tell you what, look at the video. Because it's going to take us time to repeat what I've just said. It's a long hadith. No. طيب, any other person? Fadal at the back. Is there any to say the zakah is not supposed to be sent outside your region unless there is no poor people. So there are poor people here can't pay the electricity bill and gas bills, especially gas bills. Okay, it's better to give it to them rather than to send it to whatever country you want to send it to, because the other countries who are rich people, they don't have any knowledge about your poor people who live amongst you. You are the one who's aware of them. So the zakah is to be given, number one, to the relatives, because nobody knows about the relatives except for you. So this giving it to the relatives will be 2 or double shot. 1, zakah. Second one, joining the kinship. Sila. You'll have double reward. If there's no relatives, then you could give it to those people in your locality, because you are knowing about them more than the Chinese man who's living in China, because he doesn't know about your locality. So I would say before you send it abroad, make sure that your people who are here having the zakah. Prophet ﷺ, when he sent Mu'adh ibn Jabal and Abu Musa al-Ash'ari to Yemen, he said to them that to call them to La ilaha illallah. If they had said La ilaha illallah, then tell them that there is 5 daily prayer, and there is tell them as well that there is a zakah to be collected from their own poor, rich, to be given to their own poor. So this alms, they call it, with the zakah, is not to be levied all the way from Yemen to Medina. No, we don't want it to Medina. So this zakah to be collected from your own rich to be given to your own poor. It's not we're going to take this zakah all the way from Yemen to Medina, unless there's a surplus, yeah, we give it to Medina. So to be given to the all people, so they will know. وَإِيَّاكَ وَكَرَائِمَ أَمْوَالِهِمْ. Don't take the precious amongst their money. So you come to the sheep, 40 sheep, 1 sheep. Remember what we said? 40 sheep, 1. So you go to the biggest one with rams, with the horns. Don't do that. So because وَإِيَّاكَ وَكَرَائِمَ أَمْوَالِهِمْ. Don't take the precious because they will not like it. Take the one which is the average. Now, جزاك الله. تفضل. You haven't asked a question. تفضل.
Can you give zakat to one of your family members to pay off another family member who's in debt? Give it to someone in the family to pay off someone else in the family who's there.
What is the wrong? What is? I don't know what is the catch here. So I'm giving to somebody. It's like I'm giving to the charity money for to give zakat al-fitr to somebody else. So it's not the same.
It's if an individual is in debt, I have the money to give to someone else, someone in the family. Can I give the zakat to that person who's in debt with another member of the family?
He's just saying, didn't we explain? We said that the person has a choice either to give to the creditor, or to give to the person who's in debt to go and settle his debt. We said if that person is guaranteed for you to go and settle his debt, it's better to give it to him, and he will settle his debt. Is that the question?
Yeah, but it's in the same family household.
It doesn't matter.
Still fine.
It's the same thing. It doesn't matter. No, جزاك. تفضل. How do I know that the person is poor and needs of zakah? Well, there is 2 ways. Either this person tells you that he is poor, or other people tell you that he's poor. The second way, that the way he lives. For example, he has got no car, and he has got he's got no house, and it's like a person, you find him, for example, clothes wise, is not really looking that much. So that's an indication that he's a poor. Then you go to the second stage, which is to ask other people. They will tell you, especially his neighbors or relatives, they will tell you. Okay, they will tell you. Now, Allah al-Musta'an. I have a story in my head, but I can't say it because you're going to link to people which is in this country that might be known. So I don't want to be saying it. For us, he knows it. Fadal.
On one of the hadith when the Prophet asked someone to collect the zakat, and one of the people who gave the zakat gave him something for him, and they said, this is for you and this is for the zakat, and the Prophet said that is not allowed. Is this similar to tipping here, like in the UK, to give tips in restaurants and so on? What is the ruling of that?
So we're going to be, inshallah, discussing this issue when we come to the rishwa, the bribe. Prophet of Allah said, Hadaya al-ummal ghulul, to give gifts to the workers of the government is ghulul. Ghulul means it's like stealing from the booty. And this is Hadith ibn Lutbiyah, where he's been assigned by the Prophet of Allah to go and collect the zakah. So he did collect the zakah. So he came back and he said, this is for me, and this is for you. So he said, this is for you, that means for the Islamic State, for the Prophet of Allah to be zakah, and this is being given to me as a gift. So the Prophet ﷺ, he ascended the pulpit. It's a major issue. Why is it that we send somebody to go and collect the zakah, and he comes back and he says, this is me, and this is for me, and this is for you. Let him stay in the house of his mother and see that the people are going to give him a gift or not. Would he? Would the people give him anything? No. let him sit in his own house, and let's see the people are going to give him hadiyah, gift. They only give him hadiyah. Why? Because he's collecting the zakah. So when you give him hadiyah to collect the zakah, so now, so he comes to the sheep, 40 sheep, you give him a hadiyah, he will take the weakest one. You give him hadiyah. If you don't give him hadiyah, he will go to the what? Best one, to hammer you, to punish you. Do you understand what I'm talking about? He will go to the best sheep, the best camel. So the Prophet of Allah ﷺ, he forbade such a rishwa. So a rishwa, la'ana Allah Azza wa Jalla had cursed the person who takes it and gives it. A rishwa, daf'u malin, li'ihqaqi batin wa talihaq. To give money in order to make falsehood correct and correct falsehood. That's it. That's the rishwa. Now, when you give a tip to a person who's giving you, for example, a drink or something, is that money is a bribe? No, it's not. It's like I would call it honorarium. Honorarium. So a person, for example, he is working in the restaurant, and he's mashallah is good. You could see him working, and he's giving you extra things, and it's not because you're giving him. You've seen that, so no problem. In the shop, they will give a tip. And sometimes these people, they divide the tip between the workers. You've seen them, you put them in a pot. And at the end of the day, they divide it. That's not a bribe. That's no problem. That's a tip you could give, okay? And they will not treat you indifferently if you come back again. Same thing. Even if you give them a lot of tip, they will not. For example, you're going to ask them for one fish, they give you double fish. If they do so, is it with the consent of the owner or not? Because as well, if the owner is going to be the one who's going to be the loser, these people are going to honor you from what they don't really own. It's from what the owner owns, then that's haram. Do you understand what I'm saying? That's why I went to one of the restaurants in my country, and it says there the big signs all over the place, don't give a tip to the worker. Every word says, don't give a tip to the worker. Don't give a tip to the worker. Why? This worker will start now, first of all, give you more attention than the others. So he's, doesn't care about the others. So his service will not be as good to the others. Number two, he might be stealing from what is not his own to give you extra soup, extra meat, which is not as well, it's not from his own pocket, from the pocket of the owner. So the owner, he says, no tips for them. Don't give it to them. But if you want to give it to the owner and then he gives it to them, that's better. If they've got a pot or something like this, you can put it there, and then they will divide it amongst them. It's no problem, inshallah. Pardon? I don't know anything about cryptocurrency. I don't know anything about cryptocurrency. I don't get myself involved into it. But I feel that cryptocurrency is more of a gambling. Because the money that is attached to it is up and down. It's nothing to do with small increments of profits. No. It's either a big gain or a big loss. True or not, that's gambling. So I don't put myself into it. And I'm not going to say anything about it because I don't know it. I'm scared even to look at it. Now. Business? We've answered that. Please look at the one previous class. نعم طيب حديث المخارق. We want to just, because قبيصة بن المخارق الهلالي. The three people are in that because he's poor, he's very now not really having the hadith. We said that the person who are three, one who had taken the burden of other people's, one who had, we call it jaiha, that is something that ruined his crops, something ruined his cattle, everybody can see it, then he's entitled for that as well. And the third one who is got, we call it faqa, which is something to do with his money that cannot be seen by the people, which is his gold, silver, they put it, had a fraud, somebody stole him, then we have to have three people who are senior from his own tribe to testify that he has been bankrupt, then he's entitled for as well to ask for zakah. والله تعالى أعلم وسبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك.